Hello, and welcome back to another Formiculosis video. If you're new here, my name is Ryan, and we read some scary stories on this channel for our enjoyment. Today's video is all about working the night shift. We have a few short stories today, so make sure you get yourself comfortable and make your space ambient for some scary stories. And make sure, if you do enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But, anyways, let's get into the scary stories. I worked the night shift at a hospital. There was a list of strange rules. Having to spend your nights awake and your days asleep is not made for everyone. This hasn't been a problem for me as a kid since I never managed to fall asleep at night and ended up sleeping during my class. I lost count of how many times I woke up to my teacher shouting my name and my classmates staring at me. When I turned 16, I had to start thinking about what career I wanted to pursue. Because I usually am wide awake at night, I figured I could become a security guard who works the night shift. I look intimidating as I am tall and often go to the gym, so my sole appearance would tell people not to try and mess with me. Although, in fact, I'm not as tough and strong as I look. That being said, it appears my experience in the field has led me to quite a unique job opportunity. My boss approached me and asked if I was interested in guarding a hospital for 3 days. He mentioned the job would pay exceptionally well compared to my previous jobs, as it requires experience and a trustworthy person. The opportunity of working in a hospital has not yet been offered to me during my time working here, and it seemed like quite the challenge. If I managed to fulfill the job as expected, it might also result in a salary increase. I accepted the offer wholeheartedly, as declining would be foolish. It was surprisingly busy on the road, which led me to arrive to the hospital around 8:40 p.m. I got out of my car and made my way to the front door. The building seemed medieval, as it was made from bricks and had this Romanesque charm. The building wasn't big, in fact, it's rather small. From the outside, it seemed the building has 3 floors with short hallways. I pushed the front door and greeted the lady at the counter. Her smile radiated a welcome, soothing feeling, easing me of any nerves in an instant. Hello. I believe I was hired for the night shift at this hospital. I'm a bit early, though. I was supposed to start at 10. What's your name, darling? She asked, maintaining her inviting smile. I'm Jake, I replied confidently. She started typing on the PC in front of her, seemingly checking whether I was speaking the truth. I mean, you never can be too sure. Some crazy people would pretend to be a night shift security guard. Is your boss Michael? Yes, ma'am. All right. One of the other security guards will be here shortly to explain the procedures. Would you like a cup of coffee in the meantime? I would love a cup of coffee. Could it be black? I asked with a grateful face. She chuckled and left to get me my coffee. A few minutes later, she returned with a cup of coffee. It tasted amazing, unlike I've tasted before. Everything seemed to fall right in line because a security guard approached me right as I finished my coffee. The security guard looked at me with skeptical eyes, judging my appearance before saying, You must be the security guard, huh? I didn't expect someone so young to show up for the job, but that doesn't matter if you do as I say. I got out of my chair and held out my hand to shake his hand. Nice to meet you, sir. I assume you will be showing me around? I asked confidently. I was always taught that it's important to look confident, even though you might not feel confident, as it leaves a positive impression on the people you work for. However, the security guard in front of me, 6'7" and quite the physique, made it difficult for me not to feel intimidated. Follow me, he ordered. I followed him and we made our way to the security room. He proceeded to show me how the cameras operate and gave me a tour around the building. He told me some basic security rules, which I've heard too many times. Oh, there's one last thing, he mentioned as he was leaving. You see that paper on the desk? Read it. It contains a list of rules that you must follow. If you don't, we'll know. I hope you are professional enough to take them seriously and follow them, no matter how bizarre they might seem. I looked at him dumbfounded, but swiftly regained my composure and assured him I would follow the rules. Good luck, kid, he said as he left the room. I watched him leave as the clock positioned above the door told me that it was 9:30 p.m., which meant I had 30 more minutes before my shift officially started. The paper stated a total of 7 rules. Rule 1. Your shift will begin at 10 p.m. Make sure that you are inside the security room by that time. From 10:15 p.m. until 11 p.m., you are required to patrol the building to ensure that no individuals are present. If you encounter anyone, kindly ask them to leave. Rule 2. Somewhere between 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., A young woman could appear, knocking on the front door asking to see her husband. Ignore her completely, and pretend she isn't there until she goes away. Rule 3. Ensure that the lights inside the intensive care unit remain on throughout your shift. If they happen to turn off, make your way over there and turn them back on. If you hear screaming while the lights are off, run towards the nearest bathroom and stay there until the screaming stops. Then proceed to turn the lights on. Rule 4. If there's a little girl with a teddy bear in the cafeteria, sit next to her and don't say a word. If she looks at you, walk back to the security room. If she speaks to you, talk back until she leaves. Rule 5. Around 1 a.m., go to the general ward and check on the patients. If one seems to be sitting on their bed, ask them if they're okay and do whatever they request. If they strike a conversation besides this, ignore it. Rule 6. If it starts raining, open the front door and let people in for shelter. Make sure everyone you let inside leaves the building. If someone seems to be missing, you will see them on the security cameras. Do not look at them. Rule 7. If the security cameras were to turn off any time throughout the night, hide and pray for your life. They won't find you. I put the paper back down on the desk and leaned back in the chair. I laughed at the sheer bizarreness of the situation. I must be getting pranked, I thought to myself, though deep down I did not believe it was a prank. This was in fact a hospital, and it seemed unlikely my boss would go to such lengths for a joke. Perhaps this was his way of seeing how much he could trust me, to see if I would follow such foolish rules. I reread the rules once again to make sure I understood them. I sure as hell was going to show my boss that he can count on me. The clock struck 10 p.m., and I turned my attention to the security cameras. With not much happening on the security cameras, and only having 15 minutes until I was supposed to patrol, I felt my attention slowly falling towards my phone. The best way to waste your time. Spending time looking at memes and stupid internet news sure does go by quickly. It felt like I had barely spent time on my phone, yet it was already 10:15 p.m. I left my cozy chair, stretched my legs, and made my way out of the security room. I figured that starting at the highest floor and descending my way down would be the best course of action, so I made my way to the highest floor. Thankfully, there was an elevator, so I did not have to bother using the stairs. I made my way up to the highest floor and started checking all the rooms, hallways, and even the bathrooms. As I expected, nothing special happened. The thing about working the night shift as a security guard is mostly that someone must be at the location in case something happens. However, this does not mean that anything will happen, making it a boring, easy way to earn money. On top of that, I get to grab coffee and snacks whenever I want. No one seemed to be on the third floor, so I decided to descend to the second floor of the building. After patrolling the second floor, I reached the conclusion I had set for myself beforehand. Nothing special. I grabbed my phone to check the time to see if I needed to hurry. It was 10:32 p.m. when I finished the second floor, giving me enough time to explore the first floor. It did strike me as weird, however, that there was literally no one in the hospital. I expected a hospital to always have doctors and patients in the building, as that's the entire point of a hospital. However, every room I checked so far has been empty. If my boss was indeed trying to test me, he did not go all in on the preparations. Despite that, I proceeded to the first floor, which contained the intensive care unit, security room, front door, and cafeteria. I planned to pass through the ICU and main hall area first so I could finish off with the cafeteria and get myself a snack. As I made my way through the ICU, I was caught by surprise when I noticed an old man, around 70 years old, standing in one of the rooms. Wonderstruck for a bit, I recalled rule number 1. If you encounter anyone, kindly ask them to leave. Suddenly, everything fell into place. I realized that my boss had likely hired an actor and allowed him inside the building to test my adherence to the rules. With a sigh, I made my way toward the man. "Excuse me, sir. You are not supposed to be here at this time. I would like to kindly ask you to leave," I firmly asserted to the old man. The old man looked at me without saying a word, appearing confused by what I told him. "Sir, I would kindly ask you to leave," I repeated. He nodded his head in agreement and followed me out of the building. "Have a good night, sir," I told him as he walked away. Right before he completely vanished into the darkness, the old man unexpectedly spoke. "Be careful of this surgeon." What did he mean by that? I quickly realized my boss must have told him to say that to scare me, so I quickly disregarded it. I continued my patrol around the first floor. No one else seemed to be on the first floor, so I grabbed another cup of coffee and a croissant from the cafeteria. As it was 10:53 p.m., I made my way back to the security room. Once inside, I leaned back in my chair and played some games on my phone, confident no one was in the building, and I had nothing to worry about. After playing games on my phone for a while and finally checking the time, I was surprised to see that it was nearly 12 a.m. I had spent over an hour playing games on my phone. I shifted my attention to the security camera, scanning for any anomalies. My heart skipped a beat as I noticed the lights of the ICU were switched off. I cursed at myself for not paying attention as I had no idea how long the lights had been switched off, and the rules stated to turn them on as soon as possible. I got out of the security room to turn on the lights. As I walked towards the ICU, I froze in my steps. The sound of people screaming was deafening. I was baffled by the situation, unsure if my boss would have gone this far just to see how far I would follow the rules. The agony in the screams was noticeable and raised my anxiety. That's when I heard a door open and close, followed by footsteps making their way towards my location. Without hesitation, I bolted to the bathroom on the first floor and knocked myself in one of the toilets. I tried to gather my composure and make sense of the situation I found myself in. I couldn't seem to understand how it was possible for anyone to even be in the building. Their screams of agony felt so realistic that it left no room to think this was staged by my boss. Those screams were real. Before I could fully reclaim my composure, the bathroom door swung open and the same footsteps I heard before walked inside. I tried to stay as silent as possible, not knowing if the person had a weapon. For a second, the silence was deafening until the person started whispering a song to himself. Welcome to the hospital. Welcome to the hospital. You can come, but you can't go. Welcome to the hospital. Welcome to the hospital, he murmured as he knocked on the doors of every bathroom stall. I jumped when he knocked on mine, the sound noticeably louder than with the others. Through the gap beneath the door, I could see his feet on the other side, completely motionless. Is anyone there? He said with a deranged tone. Open up. Don't be shy, he continued. My heart pounded in my chest as I held on to the silence. I remained frozen, praying he would soon leave me alone so I could get the hell out of there. The man persisted, knocking on the door as an attempt to gain any reaction out of me. Come on, Jake. I need your help with something, he cried out desperately. I felt my blood turn cold at the sound of him mentioning my name, unsure as to how he could have known it. I stayed still and did not make a sound. After a couple of minutes, he gave up and walked out of the bathroom. Right before he left, one more sentence left his mouth. See you soon, Jake. I did not leave the bathroom for another 10 minutes, until the screaming had finally stopped. I unlocked the bathroom stall I was in and slowly opened the door that led towards the main hall, making sure no one was in sight. I exited the bathroom and slowly made my way to the ICU to turn the lights back on. Right after I turned the lights on, I ran towards the security room as it suddenly felt like the only safe place in the building. As I let myself fall into the cozy chair, I looked at the time displayed on my phone, which indicated 12:51 a.m. Still full of adrenaline of what had just happened, I quickly reread all the rules to see if I had acted the way I was supposed to. Thankfully, that was the case. As I got to Rule 5, I was given a lovely reminder to check up on the patients around 1 a.m. and fulfill any wishes they had. Though I was not too sure I was ready for another endeavor, I was more afraid of what might happen if I don't oblige to the rules. During my patrol, I did not see anyone in the patient rooms, so how could there be anyone? I made my way up the stairs, this time reluctant to use the elevator, feeling it might stop working. Besides, it's only one floor, so I might as well use the stairs. As I stepped onto the second floor, my heartbeat started increasing slightly as I did not know what to expect. As I made my way to the patients, I started hearing excessive coughing from one of the rooms. I decided to go past the rooms one by one to make sure I did not skip any of them. As I peered into the first room, hoping to see nothing except an empty room, I was disappointed. In the bed laid an old woman, apparently sleeping. She had 2 tubes inside her nostrils and a needle in her arm. This is when I realized I hate the sight of people in these conditions. In every room were patients who seemed either extremely sick or extremely wounded. Whilst making my way throughout the hallway, the coughing sound became louder as I slowly made my way towards the source. Of course, it was in the last room. In case it was that maniac in the bathroom from before, I'd have to run the farthest. All the other patients were sleeping as I made my way to the last and final room. I took a deep breath before walking in. Despite my nervousness, I stepped into the doorway and looked at the man. The man was sitting in the bed, elbow in front of his mouth, coughing like he had been in the past few minutes. When he noticed me, he tried to speak. Water, he muttered, trying to stop his coughing. For a second, I was caught off guard. This guy seemed to be an actual patient. I even felt pity for him. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like for him. I quickly ran down to the cafeteria to grab a cup of water and bring it to him. As he saw me standing in the doorway, his hand signaled me to come closer and hand him the cup of water. I walked towards him and handed it to him. He drank it so fast I figured he'd beaten a world record. He collapsed on his bed and thankfully stopped coughing. Thank you, he exclaimed. No problem, man. You seem like you needed it, I replied. After a minute of sitting in the silence with the man, I figured it was time for me to leave the room, as I did what he asked. Besides, he didn't seem to be much of a chatter. He was just happy to have had his water. As I made my way to the door and wanted to grab the handle, he spoke. "Where are you going? Come sit with me, my friend." A chill went down my spine as I heard him speak. His entire tone changed from before, and he sounded serious. I slowly turned my head back to him, realizing I had no choice but to do what he asked. I sat down next to him and on the bed. "What's up?" I tried to say confidently, but failing in doing so. "I'm not gonna hurt you, son. I appreciate you helping me. You see, the surgeon stuffed a can of cinnamon down my throat, which led me to be unable to breathe. I wanted to tell you to be careful because he's still wandering the building." "He stuffed cinnamon down your throat?" I asked in disbelief. That's when I remembered the old man from before had said, "Be careful of the surgeon." "Yes, he did. I wanted to warn you. This seems to be your first time here. I figured you'd like to know there's a maniac inside the building. If you do what the rules say, kid, you'll be fine." I looked at him with fright. After taking a deep breath and standing up, I thanked him and made my way out of the room. Thankfully, he did not ask me to come back. I made my way to the security room. My pace increased when I heard something falling on the third floor. In no multiverse would I have gone upstairs to check what was going on there. If I followed the rules, I'd be fine. I grabbed the door handle of the security room and closed it as soon as I was inside. A wave of relief crashed over me, as I once again felt safe. When I looked at the clock above the door, it indicated the time was 1:53 a.m. I sat down in the chair and once again read the sheet of paper. Thankfully, there were no more rules stating for me to go outside the security room. I prayed to God the rest of the night would be as boring as all my previous jobs had been. I felt relieved knowing my shift ended at 6 a.m., which meant I only had 4 hours left to go. I could tell the events that occurred this eventful night had taken a toll on my energy, as I felt quite exhausted. While staring at the security cameras, I felt my eyelids slowly closing and my mind drifting away. I fell asleep in the chair, completely forgetting about where I even was to begin with. I woke up around 2:45 a.m. and gave my body and mind some time to adjust to reality, as I had no clue where I was when I woke up. After a short while, I came back to my senses when I realized I was in the middle of a night shift. Awake, though still feeling the effects of waking up, I made my way to the cafeteria to grab myself a cup of coffee. I figured it'd help me stay awake for the rest of the night. I walked into the empty cafeteria and made my way to the coffee machine. I watched the coffee pour into my cup, entertained by the sight of it. As I turned around to go back to the security room, I jumped and spilled the coffee all over my suit. Although no one was in the cafeteria when I walked in, there now was a little girl sitting at one of the tables. Unsure of what the rules exactly said about this occurrence, I tried my best to remember the rules. My train of thought was interrupted once I noticed the little girl had turned around and was now staring at me. She had a small white skirt and a pink t-shirt and blonde curly hair going just as far as her shoulders. In her hand she held a teddy bear with buttons as eyes, except one of the eyes was hanging on by a thread. She looked at me without any expression on her face, making me feel uncomfortable and uncertain as to what I should do. All I could remember from the rules is that I had to sit next to her. Although I was reluctant and not entirely sure, I felt like it was the safest course of action. In the end, it was only a little girl. I sat next to her, her eyes intently staring at mine. She did not say a word for a long time, and I felt extremely uncomfortable, unsure of when I could leave. That is when she started giggling, covering her mouth with one hand, while still holding her teddy bear with the other. "You forgot the rules," she said in a frightening and teasing tone. I looked at her confused, thinking I had remembered them correctly. She could see the panicked look in my eyes, enjoying the sight of it. "Want to play hide and seek?" she excitedly asked. "I'll count to 60, and then we will look for you." I did not bother to ask who we was. She looked at me like a kid looks at a candy in a candy store. I ran to the security room, leaving my coffee next to the little girl. As I ran away, I could hear her counting. 1, 2, 3. Forever with me you'll be. 4, 5, 6. In the darkness you'll cease to exist. I locked myself in the security room and quickly grabbed the rules as I reread Rule 4. If there's a little girl with a teddy bear in the cafeteria, sit next to her and don't say a word. If she looks at you, walk back to the security room. If she speaks to you, talk back until she leaves. My throat turned dry as I realized my mistake. As I realized I had broken one of the rules, I remembered her mentioning hide and seek. That's when suddenly all the security cameras turned off. Rule 7. If the security cameras were to turn off any time throughout the night, hide and pray for your life, they won't find you. I completely lost it as I did not know what to expect nor where to hide. All I knew is that the security room was too obvious for me to stay in, as there's no way I could escape from here. Overtaken by my adrenaline, I felt like my body was moving on its own. I reached for the front door and frantically tried to open it. The door wouldn't budge, no matter how hard I kicked. 52, 53, 54, 55. Prepare to run for your life, the little girl sang from inside the cafeteria. Despite feeling mentally overwhelmed, making me feel dizzy and close to passing out, my body had gone a mind of its own. I ran up the stairs to the second floor, to the room of the patient I had given a cup of water. I opened the door to his room only to see he was no longer there. That did not matter to me at that point, however, as I just wanted to find a proper hiding spot. By the time I was inside the room, I could already hear the little girl frantically laughing and singing as she had counted to 60. Unsure of how long I had left before she would be coming to this room, I decided I had to hide as soon as possible. I looked around the room for any suitable hiding spots, but there seemed to be none. The best option seemed to have was to get inside the ceiling, as it was made from plates that could be pushed up. I stood on the bed to get closer to the ceiling and hopefully pull myself up. I accidentally kicked the photo from the nightstand next to the bed. The sound of it hitting the ground echoed throughout the entire building. "I heard that!" she screamed as I heard her running towards my location. I completely freaked out and realizing I had to be quick. I jumped as high as I could and held onto the ceiling, pulling myself up as fast as I could. I could tell the ceiling wasn't made for any person being on top of it, as every little move I had made caused the ceiling to cave. Once I made it above the ceiling, I blocked off the square hole and laid completely still, not wanting to make a sound or have the chance of the ceiling falling. I could hear the little girl into the room excitedly, tiptoeing around. "I know you're in here. I heard you drop something," she said in a playful tone, enjoying every second of it. My heartbeat skyrocketed through this entirety of the situation, unsure whether she would find me or not. She poked into the ceiling with a broom, trying to figure out if I was there or not. Though I almost jumped once I felt the vibrations of the broom touching the ceiling, I managed to lie still and not make a sound. "Guess you're not here then," she said disappointingly as she walked out of the room and continued to keep searching. I could feel the ceiling giving into my weight, which meant I had to find a different hiding spot. After a couple of minutes and making sure she was no longer nearby, I slowly descended back into the room, being as quiet as I could. I peered my head into the hallway to see if anyone was there, but no one was in sight. I made my way through the hallway with the smallest steps I could make, flinching at every sound I heard. I figured I should hide on the first floor since she had already checked the entire floor already. Though I did not know exactly where she was, I figured she would be upstairs. I slowly made my way downstairs, making sure no one was there. As I heard her shoes touching the floor above me, I knew I was safe to walk on the first floor for a while. This seemed to be a horrible conclusion because the moment I turned the corner, I could see the silhouette of a man standing near the ICU. I could see his face turn to me. I quickly jumped behind the wall, hoping he had not seen me. "What is a patient of mine doing out of this room so late?" the man asked. Realizing I did not have long before he would be here, I had two options. My first option was to go back upstairs and hope I would not encounter the girl and maybe find a hiding spot there. The second option was to run to the bathroom once again in hopes I'd be safe there. I didn't like either of those options, as I felt either of them would lead to me getting caught. Though I did not feel like I had the time to go back upstairs at all, I quickly ran towards the bathroom. Right before I wanted to enter the bathroom, I noticed the janitor's closet right underneath the stairs. Feeling like it's my best chance of survival, I opened the door and hid myself behind a container and a pile of trash bags. "Come on now. I need to inspect your organs," the man proclaimed as I heard him open the bathroom door. His voice sounded familiar, but at first I did not seem to understand why. That was until he finished searching the bathroom. "You were smart enough to hide somewhere else this time. I'm impressed you are not as stupid as you look," he said as I realized who he was. The guy sounded exactly like the maniac I had encountered before. My blood froze to the fact that he knew where I was all along. He opened the janitor closet and looked around for a bit, but decided it was too small for someone to hide in, so he closed it soon after, leaving me in utter darkness, horrified to do anything. I stayed in there for the rest of the night, not getting out until I knew I was completely safe. I could hear a drill, followed by a man screaming in agony. The man, who I assumed was the surgeon, laughing maniacally. I grabbed my phone to see how long I had left until the nightmare was over. 5:45 a.m. Only 15 minutes left until the staff of the hospital would come in for their daily shift. I just had to hold on for a little bit longer. I ended up falling asleep in the closet, feeling completely hopeless and defeated, exhausted from the night I had witnessed. I was woken up by a kind old man who seemed to be the janitor, who seemed surprised to see a security guard hiding behind his equipment. "Rough night?" he asked, though he knew the answer based on my expression. "It's over. You can come out now." I got back on my feet and walked into the hallway. The hospital looks completely different during the day than it does at night. Instead of being unsettling, it seemed like a nice place. I thanked the janitor for his kindness and got the hell out of that place. I drove home and collapsed on my bed. I still could not comprehend what I had witnessed. It all felt like a fever dream. I told my boss I was sick and did not bother to answer his phone calls. After a week, I returned to my regular, uneventful shifts. Though the boredom might be horrible, I did not mind at all. In the end, anything is better than having to spend the night in that hospital. Wow. Yeah, whew, that's a very interesting story. It kind of felt more like Five Nights at Freddy's a little bit in terms of following the rules um, for certain events during the night. With the security camera and stuff like that. Basically like FNAF 1. Um, it was a very eventful story. So many things happened. So if that situation was real, wow. I mean, how do you even explain that to anybody that happened? I mean, to your boss. Anyways, let's get to the next story. Night shift gas station story. A little over a year ago, I had a job working overnight at a gas station close to my house. I'm a woman and was 31 at the time. I know to some it seems unsafe for a woman to work graveyard shift by herself. However, it was a slow store and the sheriff's office was about 20 feet across from it. I really didn't think I would have that many problems. And there would be about 30 customers in an 8-hour shift, and that was on a busier night. It was about 3:30 in the morning. I went outside to sweep the parking lot and last minute checked the trash. It was time for a cigarette, and I had one headphone in, kind of jamming out. Across the road in the parking lot of the sheriff's office, I saw a figure with his back to me. He was swaying back and forth while looking down. Honestly, it looked like he was enjoying a much-needed piss. Against the sheriff's office, though? Yeah, the building closed at 4 p.m. and didn't open again until 6 in the morning, but why? By the back of his ripped white t-shirt, I remember that he had come in about 4 hours earlier. He was a total creep, and I could already tell he had a good buzz going. I didn't say anything. I just took my eyes off of him and tried not to draw attention to myself. It was working until a car pulled in. I was still outside as they pulled up. I saw him look at the car and then at me and back and forth again. As the customer was leaving, I walked her outside. I still had half a smoke burning and had left my dustpan outside with the squeegee. We both heard him start to swear angrily and seemingly engage in an argument with himself. She looked across the road and told me to be careful. I made an awkward joke about him being the one who should be more afraid of me or something like that. The man was still there but closer to the road, now facing the parking lot of my store. Whatever he's yelling was completely unintelligible. He was obviously very drunk and can barely stand straight, still swaying away. I didn't engage with him, but I didn't take my eyes off of him this time. I just slowly walked back into the store. Something about his face really bothered me. It had a darkness to it, but his eyes looked wild. My experience during graveyard jobs has been that the crazy-eyed ones are the worst. I didn't like it at all and wanted no part of it. I still had almost 3 hours to go and 2 before any other employees got there. Instantly, I went to the computer and typed up a temporarily closed sign just in case he wanted trouble. I was coming around the counter on my way to the doors when I saw that he'd walked across the road to my side now. I literally just barely got the second door locked when he stumbled into our very small parking lot. My hand mimed this hand signal for a cut across my neck, basically saying, "Nope, sorry, you can't come in here. We're closed." I shook my head back and forth too, hoping to further discourage him. He started walking away but screamed something at me while he was walking. I don't mean he was grumpy and shouted at me or yelled that I was an asshole or anything. I mean like he was at an enraged volume and was violently throwing his hands everywhere. Definitely knowing I'm in the wrong shift of the wrong job, I got really skeeved out. I decided to call the cops. It's a good thing too, because the minute I hung up with him, there he comes again up at the door. He starts pulling and banging on it. He backs up and runs into it trying to ram it. Not that it would have done any good. I made the mistake of telling him that I had called the cops and his ass was about to be grass. I say I made the mistake of telling him because once I said that, he took off. The police never found him. They drove around the road and surrounding neighborhoods for over an hour, but found no one. They drove around the road and surrounding neighborhoods for over an hour, but found no one. He was on foot, so I don't get where he could have gone to. He didn't harm me, and with them not finding him, I didn't fill out a police report or anything. I was safe behind thick glass doors that were locked for the rest of my shift. It just sucked. Maybe if I didn't warn him ahead of time, I wouldn't have had to spend the last 3 months of my job constantly looking over my shoulder. I'll never know what the right choice was. I'm just glad I don't work there anymore. Yeah. I don't know. Working night shift, oof. And having, because people are crazy during night shifts and graveyard shifts. Drunk people, people that are high, because it's the night. Can't really see things. It's just scarier. People in general are scary during the night. But yeah, definitely a good idea to not work there anymore, or in that area anymore, if he's still on the loose. But I feel like if she didn't say that, something bad might have happened, even if it's thick glass doors. But yeah, it's honestly like choices matter in this game, But anyways, let's get to the next story, shall we? A night shift in radiology. I worked in the radiology department in a hospital in Cardiff, Wales, UK, for about 3 years as an admin and clerical officer before getting a promotion working in medicine. During these 3 years, I saw a lot of things, ranging from patients dying in the MRI scanners to patients having an x-ray for inserting a meat thermometer into their urethra. Nights always seemed the craziest. One time, a patient came in with armed police after an altercation which involved a knife in the middle of the city center, and just so happened the person he had the altercation with was having an x-ray too. Chairs were thrown, a trash bin or two, and then a wheelchair. So I've seen some things, some funny, some stressful, some sad, and many bonkers. But this one night, something scary. I would start a night shift about 19 o'clock, then would work till 8:30 in the next morning. This was the standard night shift for our department. We would usually do 3 nights in a row before doing 4 days off. After the 3rd night, you were ready to sleep for a week. The strange thing was this was my first night of the 3, so not at all tired. It started off normal. I arrived at the department, took over from the day staff, logged into my PC. During this time, we usually would set up our phones or tablets to watch movies or the latest TV series, as there would be a lot of downtime between patients. Like I said, the first few hours, nothing that interesting. Just your average run-of-the-mill night in radiology. Then it came to my break. Now, before I tell you more, I should probably explain the layout of this hospital. This hospital is the largest in Wales. It's a teaching hospital and it's pretty old. Now, the best way to get from A to B in this hospital is through what we call the tunnels, or the catacombs. These consist of very dimly lit corridors, old abandoned rooms, tunnels, and other creepy, decrepit areas. The morgue is also found in these corridors, so it's not a nice place to be during the day, let alone in the middle of the night. But it's the quickest way to get to places, if you're staff. There's always been rumors and mumblings of strange things happening in these tunnels. Some people say they saw ghosts in an old-fashioned porter uniforms taking wheelchairs to pick up patients. Others say they have seen shadows following them from the corner of their eyes. But one person has claimed they were attacked by a person wearing an old nurse's uniform from the 70s. This place is creepy, even at the best of times. But for me, never really fazed me. I've been down there hundreds of times before the worst experience up to this point was having a sluice pipe drip human waste on my head. That in itself was a horror show. But tonight would be something altogether different, and maybe not even of this physical world. Like I said, before a very quiet night, I had been watching the latest series of One Piece because I'm a geek. During my downtime, a radiographer or radiology technician from my American friends out there came to take over and cover me for my break. I decided to go to the 5th floor where the sanctuary, multi-faith chapel, was located. On a night shift, it is one of the most peaceful places in the hospital. But to get there, I had to walk through the tunnels to reach the nearest elevator. I set off on my journey, which would usually take about 15 minutes, scanned my keycard on the main entrance to the tunnels, then proceeded to walk through. 2 minutes in, I started to feel like someone was walking behind me. It being a busy hospital and basically the tunnels acted like the highway, I didn't think anything of it. Suddenly I heard panting, like someone was trying to catch their breath after going for an intense run. So I turned around to check and saw nothing. A bit strange, but thought it was nothing. Maybe just one of the pipes above my head creaking or a generator pumping. So I carried on walking, but kept feeling like someone or something was watching me and was walking behind me. Out of sheer confusion and fear, I missed my turn towards the elevators and found myself in a large section of the tunnels that I've never been before, littered with old stretchers, beds, hospital furniture, and equipment. Some of this stuff was over 50 years old, well, maybe even older, just left to decay in a dark, smelly, decrepit, and dusty corridor. This was starting to really creep me out, because in all of the confusion, I realized I was lost. It almost felt like I had fallen into the back rooms. Everything looked the same. I could feel a tightening in my chest and could feel the start of a panic attack. I remember clutching my chest and running down a corridor trying to find a signpost or something to tell me where I was. The sense that something was watching me got stronger. Suddenly, I felt something hit my arm in force, almost like someone using a baseball bat. I remember falling to the ground, pulled myself across the floor towards the cold, dusty wall, and looked around frantically, trying to find an explanation to what the heck just hit me. Then something caught my eye. It was almost like a black mist with glowing red eyes. It was about 20 meters away from me, just hovering in the middle. Was this the thing that had been stalking me the entire time? I got back up and sprinted. I ran down what it felt like 100 different corridors until I found a housekeeper. He asked me what was wrong because I looked pale, but I couldn't get any words out. He then grabbed me by the arms with a firm grasp and said, "Did you see it too?" That was the last time I ever stepped foot in the tunnels. To this day, I hear rumors of strange things. I'm not sure what I saw that night. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe it was something. Why else would the janitor ask me if I'd seen it too? What else is down there? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I won't be going to find out. Thanks for taking your time to read this. Josh. A very classic story about the night shift. Something creepy happening. A ghost story. But at least someone believed him. Or someone at least has experienced it too. Or the janitor, I mean. So, that was a pretty interesting story. Very scary situation to be in. Getting hit by a baseball bat, I feel like you'd have a bigger reaction than that. But if it was that strong, maybe it was just an over-exaggeration. But thank you guys for watching this video of Formidulocious. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you had a good time listening to scary stories. Or maybe you're falling asleep right now. Or maybe you are asleep. But I hope you enjoyed listening. I hope you enjoyed my voice. And I hope you come back next time for the next video of Formidulosis. So, thank you, and goodbye.